Looks like we've got a great crowd, and I know we're running a little late, but I'm sure Shaun and Colleen will hang in there with their full presentation. And so we'll get right to it. Colleen Collins and Shaun Kaufman, a married private eye team, are legal investigators working exclusively with law firms for over 2 decades. They have taught courses on private investigations to regional and national writers' organizations, as well as co-authored several nonfiction books on legal investigations. Colleen Collins is a private investigator and author. She sold her first novel in 1996 and has since had 30 more books published in the romance, mystery, and nonfiction genres. Her noir short story, Look Your Last, is in the September 2020 anthology Coast to Coast Noir, published by Down and Out Books. Shaun Kaufman is a retired trial attorney with nearly 4 decades experience in criminal justice. He's the co-author of How to Write a Dick and A Lawyer's Primer for Writers, From Crimes to Courtrooms. He's learned that one's case is only as good as the evidence a PI gathers. So I'll turn it over to Shaun and Colleen.
And Shaun, you should be able to unmute. Yes, very good.
Okay,
Are we unmuted?
we're unmuted.
Okay, good. I just wanted to say thank you, and that Mystery Minute was wonderful, and it's so good to see people I haven't seen in forever. And new faces too. Before we start, I wanted to bring up that Private Eye Writers of America, this year I'm the chair for the best PI novel. So if you have published that's hardcover for this particular category, but if you have published a short story, paperback, indie paperbacks go in the paperback category, best original, best first, and or best PI novel, check out Private Eye Writers of America, their website, for submission guidelines. And well, before that, I just want to say hey out to those in Australia. We're going to be sharing a little Australian something in a moment. So go ahead and kick it off if you want, Shaun.
Wow. So I want to be a professional gambler. And so our friend who writes these mysteries, if you have any leads on the NFL game this weekend against the spread or straight up money line, please just feel free to PM me or whatever y'all do. The way this will work will be we'll stop several times during our presentation. And this is like some thing that we're going to do where we're going to allow questions. And
For that segment.
And that segment only. And if you violate the rules, we will send another married PI couple to your home. And never mind. They'll take your acetaminophen away from you.
Okay.
So at the end of these segments, we're going to take questions, and we are going to award this amazing gift from we got to put this together with our friend from, what town is she in? Melbourne. I think that's a town near Thailand or Australia. And so
Shaun's kidding, in case those of you who don't know. My friend in Australia loves our Rottweiler named Traveler and our grumpy cat named Denny Crane. And she said, please, can I do a 2021 calendar? And I said, sure. I said, if you make it about TV sleuths. So we have a bunch of calendars, 2021, with TV sleuths starring our Rottweiler and cat. I think Shaun is showing you, what one is that one?
That's Starsky and Hutch.
Yes.
And there is a different TV, 70s maybe.
A lot of 70s, yeah.
Maybe some 60s.
I don't know where you go to.
And we will award you this calendar, and then after the presentation, we will get your home address.
Yeah.
And again, we will send someone to your home.
We'll give you
with a package with the calendar.
They might think.
And that's heart to heart.
That's.
Can I see my own screen? Can I?
We see you.
Okay. that's fine. That's
Okay.
good. It works. It
Okay.
works. So that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, if the first question gets the calendar, and at the end, we'll give you the email address to please send us your mailing address so we can mail them to you.
And this is part of a larger effort that we're undertaking to benefit Denver's Max Fund, which is an
Yes.
animal rescue and low-cost veterinary clinic
Yes.
down in the lower west side in Denver. And we're very serious about that. And we love and admire the work they do
Yes.
very much. So we
Yeah.
put together this sleuth calendar.
With our friend in Australia.
And these are, Traveler is a girl dog and Denny is kind of a boy dog, a boy cat, sorry. And so they portray all these creatures.
Yeah,
So-
we've raised money for Max Fund selling these calendars, but we're giving them away tonight. And now we're going to get into what's a legal investigator.
So a legal investigator is really nothing more than a private investigator, or in some cases, a public investigator working for a government agency who gathers information to support legal cases. In this instance, you will see in-house investigators at law firms. You may get this tangentially from TV ads, but big personal injury law firms like the Strong Arm, Backus and Shanker, and other big law firms, they have their own sort of in-house private investigators that they use. They don't hire out to people. We are in a role with a lot of smaller law firms who spend less on TV advertising and spend more time doing good work. And we will work as an arm of a given lawyer. We work for several lawyers.
About 7, I think, actually.
Yeah, and 7 law firms.
Mhm.
And everything from criminal defense to estate work to family law, and even real estate work. But we work primarily for lawyers because it's more reliable, and we spend less time, following Fifi into bars on East Colfax, at least in the days when Fifi still went to bars. So we will do things. A legal investigator will do any number of things, and a legal investigator will still use the classic skills and tools that are employed by every private investigator. So there will be, for instance, legal investigator will always avail themselves, as most detectives do. They will use public records as a touchstone to get information. So it would be rare that a private investigator would really avoid or not use records as important information in a case. We're going to be talking later about some special particular cases, but almost every one of those you're going to hear, we use public records. Even when I do, and I'm not going to get too off topic, but even when I do a process service, I will look to see that the address that I've been given by the law firm, which quite frankly, they get some addresses that are like from 19.
Where'd they get them?
They actually get them from 1948 English novels because they're not very current.
Yeah.
But I will go and I will look up, is this address owned by the person they say that I should serve?
What can really a qualified PI will do that.
Mhm.
You just don't take a lawyer's, information without double checking it. Otherwise, you're going out there and wasting time, really, because you'll go to the wrong address often.
Mhm.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and going to the wrong address in Parker, for us from North Denver, is expensive.
Yeah.
Anyway, the use of public records is just a key thing that people do. Now, Colleen is more into using private proprietary databases, which are a compilation of driver's records, check cashing, credit applications.
I'm going to add this here. One, irbsearch.com, you can look at the main page, but you actually have to go through a background check and be a PI or police officer or other to actually have access to it. But they say it goes through billions of public records. And another one I use is Skip Smasher, which is run by a PI who specializes in telecommunications. That was my graduate work, was in telecommunications, and I love that site. And he will say it compiles data from millions of public records. So they're very powerful proprietary databases.
An example of a public free database that doesn't cost anything is the clerk and recorder. You can get, for instance, if I ran Chris Goff's name or address in a clerk and recorder's address, I could get recorded deeds. I could get covenants and easements and other documents affecting and speaking to real estate. Well, why is that important? Because that's going to give me her home address. So as a private investigator, I always come up to people and I ask them a question or I serve them with something and say, how did you find me? It's like, well, I put your name in a computer and it came up with a number and I drove there and here we are. So Driver's License Bureau, if you have an access from the state, like I have a private investigator's license, so does Colleen. We can go to get a driver's record. It used to be a lot faster, but yeah, today in COVID, you have to make an appointment 10 days out to get a driver's record. I mean, I used to be able to drive over there in 12 minutes and get a driver's record. But that's a public record that is, available. And when we're looking for somebody, we can't find them sometimes even in a proprietary database, we go to the DMV. So I've gone way too deep into this.
No, that's good. That's good.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll do a little bit more then.
Okay.
Other proprietary databases are things that you can access when you go through the assessor's office website. I know that I'm going to 2495 Raleigh to serve a lawsuit. So I can go to the assessor's website and put in that address and find out, again, confirm the owner. And in some cases, actually quicker and faster. You can do this yourself. If you have, if somebody doesn't have a restraining order on you, you can do this. If they do, just do it under somebody else's name.
He's joking a lot, I hope.
I've seen worse.
I just want to add here, if you don't mind. If you don't mind. Okay. All right. So, well, anyway, my thing is locating people, and I don't always get real information up front. I can't always access public records. And later I'll be talking about a case where a lawyer back east gave me a guy's bogus name, and the guy did not have a license to run a business. And he also made up a story about, I need you to find this guy because he owes me money. He's a former client that owes me money. And he didn't even know his first name. And I said to Shaun, how could a lawyer not know his client's first name? So I had to start with a bogus name. And I'll talk about going through rabbit holes to find pieces of information that is not in public records, and how a PI can then dredge up and find someone. So
to go back on track, which is
which we went way
a
off.
trip that I make quite frequently all the time. We will locate and interview witnesses because lawyers need to be prepared for what a witness will say on the stand. Those of you who write legal thrillers know that never ask a question of a witness on the stand that you don't already know the answer to. And so, we make our mortgage payment on that premise alone every month. And the people that ask in real life, not on TV, but in real life, when a guy thinks, hey, I got this case, man, I'm going to ask the question. I know that's against the rule. I'm going to ask the question because I am so powerful. I am so full of my own bipolar mania at this moment that I can ask this question. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And boy, it is just bloody what happens.
Now you're talking about in a courtroom.
Yeah, in a courtroom.
Yeah.
So the lawyer needs to be prepared.
Yeah.
You have to give them the roadmap, and then they can drive the car somewhat. Other things we will do is we will aid in developing arguments both in civil criminal cases and avenues and pathways to get information to support various arguments and claims that lawyers make in cases. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a bloody moment in a courtroom, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. And this was the DA being full of herself.
Oh,
Yes. And accusing the witness on the stand of lying about a gun being his. That was,
oh,
remember, yeah,
that's handy.
yeah. I can call him Richard, right?
Yeah.
Poor kid was 19. He was so scared. He's there on the stand, he's shaking. He actually just, none of this is in the notes, by the way. We're just now telling stories. But Richard had gone target shooting in the mountains with friends. He came back and he left his gun at his friend's apartment while he went and got some chips at 7-Eleven. Came back and he walked into a law enforcement sting on his friend's roommate. It was like a cluster, you know what. There were drug dealers showing up, getting arrested. And Richard was like, well, I'm just here to get my gun. They said, sorry, it's already evidence. And where'd you get your gun? And is that really your gun? Blah, blah, blah. Well, the DA loved it. So she's in the courtroom reaming poor 19-year-old Richard on the stand saying, you're lying. That's not your gun. This is so really walking around tough. Well, Shaun had already done the work ahead of time and had already worked it out with the lawyer. So then the defense lawyer just afterwards said, oh, excuse me, here's the receipt for Richard when he bought the gun at a pawn shop. Evidence. And so that's a case where a lawyer, the defense lawyer anyway, knew it, but the DA was running with it a little too fast. But now maybe we'll get into other things we said we would really talk about.
Yeah. I was gambling and not cheating.
It's a criminal case.
It's not a divorce case.
You want to go run with it, Shaun?
Sure.
Okay.
We were contacted by an attorney who had a client who was a Homeland Security official, a government official,
Federal agent.
a federal agent in Washington, D.C. And she and her husband had always wanted to come to Colorado to gamble, which again, you see how this whole theme goes with the sports betting? You getting me? You feeling me there? Okay. So she comes out here and she like goes into one, casino down in Cripple Creek. And she sits down at the machine. She plays for a few minutes. All of a sudden, here comes casino security, which are like the guys that are too dumb to get jobs with the police department.
Shaun.
I'm sorry. If I've offended somebody, please come up to North Denver. We'll talk. And the reason that he came up to her is because he saw her go up to a machine and then hit the button on the machine next to hers. So she was using somebody else's money to gamble.
Well, that's
And casino security said, you are misusing your gambling privileges here and you are taking somebody else's money.
the person had not cashed out their
Right, and gotten their ticket.
coupon. Yeah, okay.
So they gave her a citation, arrested her, and of course that all hit records, and DC was very concerned about it. She hired the lawyer. The lawyer asked us to go check out things. So here's what a legal investigator does. We went to the scene.
The casino.
The casino. We took pictures of the signage around there. There's no signage in there. It says, don't touch an empty machine that may have $4.73. This woman almost lost 16-year pension and a career over, literally like $4.73.
Well, also being a federal agent, it doesn't matter if they are found guilty of a misdemeanor or felony. If they are found guilty of either, they lose their job, they lose their security clearance, they lose their pension. She had 16 years invested as a federal agent, and she was being accused of stealing.
Your instincts tell you, and our theory developing in this case was, look, she had absolutely no intention of taking anything that wasn't hers. It was abandoned there. It was left there. After several meetings with the district attorney, we were able to show there was no signage. There was
No verbal information.
The security cameras in that corner of the casino didn't get that corner of the casino on the camera. So there was no tape of her, like ripping somebody off. And so ultimately, at the end of all of this stuff, the DA dismissed the charges. And
Well, that was 3 round trips from Denver to Cripple Creek. The DA, it was, I don't know, on the first trip. That was a lot of mileage. And then another trip. Well, I don't know. And it was by the 3rd trip, because Shaun was making these round trips, the DA said, okay, there's no intent. I'm dismissing it.
But as legal investigators, what we did is we gathered evidence that would support the theory that there was no intent
Yeah.
to take this money. And that included lack of signage, lack of security camera video, and so forth. And she was also just like a really nice lady.
Their first night of vacation. So we'll do our first giveaway. First question. It's this fabulous.
Where's the
Where's
calendars?
the calendar? It's this fabulous.
Sorry, somebody stole the
Okay,
calendars.
so somebody pretend to have a question anyway, and you can win a calendar.
Shaun and Colleen, how do you want them to ask a question, verbally or by the chat box?
We don't do that. Just verbally is great.
Verbal sounds real good.
So
Okay.
that you know
I think we should unmute everybody since this is a contest of who asks
Oh.
first, right?
Yeah, there you go.
So
That's what I'm wondering. How's that gonna work?
I'm going to ask everyone to unmute, and I'm going to mute you when we start up again, okay? All right.
Okay.
Right there. There is a hand raised with a question. Oh, there you are.
There you
Okay. Yeah, we got a winner.
Is it me?
I see
Um,
Barb.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Victor's moving a little, but okay.
Okay. I just want to ask, how long have you both been doing this? When did you decide to work together, and how many years have you actually been doing this?
May I?
Please, you know the story too.
Okay. Well, it's a really good story. How much time do you have? So, yeah, well, when I met Shaun, he was doing legal research. He was a retired trial attorney, and I was a full-time romance writer, and I was cranking out novels for Harlequin for 4 different lines. And on the same day, just as a fluke, they downsized the law firm where Shaun worked. And he came home and he said, we were boyfriend, girlfriend. He said, I lost my job. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I can tell him my news. I said, well, Harlequin just cut like 3 lines that I write for. I'm out of a job too. And so I often say, and this was the moment that shaped the rest of our lives. I said, let's start a private investigations business because Shaun had trained at least a dozen PIs when he had a law firm, when he was a trial lawyer in Colorado Springs. And I had often said to him, why are you doing the writing stuff? You'd be a great legal investigator. I kind of thought I'd do, I don't know, bookkeeping maybe, or something like that. And because so many lawyers adore Shaun, and they do, criminal lawyers, the very first case I worked on was a murder case. Like, I knew what I was doing? No, Shaun knew exactly what he was doing. And we're going to talk about cold crime scenes in a little bit. I actually went to a cold crime scene with Shaun, and I had to really learn by jumping in the deep end. So that was, we're going on like, this is in 20 years. It's like we're 17. We're not sure. We know how long we've been married though, 5 or what? Anyway, so after we were together for a while, we eloped. So that's how, but Shaun's the one who, he knows that.
Once again, we actually eloped to Las Vegas and we bet a lot of money in the sports book that week for our honeymoon. Not many people can say they spent their honeymoon with a fat Jewish guy named Maury who has
that wasn't Shaun, it's another guy.
kept smoking cigars. Let's talk for a minute about one of my favorite cases.
Oh, this is a good one.
And this was a case involving a young man from Colorado Springs who had known gang ties, known, not know, but known gang ties down there. And he was up here visiting a friend in Aurora in a park, or in a park that's surrounded by homes. It's not a particularly great neighborhood, but it's not a particularly terrible neighborhood either. And 3 young men approached him, assessed his gang status, as I guess young men do, who are you down with, where are you claiming? I thought it was all banking information they were seeking. So they kind of get the idea that they're opposite each other. They attack him.
At night in a park.
And he pulls out his knife and stabs 3 of them. Apparently that's illegal in Aurora. So he retains the lawyer, gets arrested in a house nearby where he went to hide. And
Well, may I?
please,
Oh, thank you so much.
please.
The reason he got arrested at the house was when the cops arrived, they found 3 local gang members with different wounds. And they said, well, there's this gang guy from, I don't know, from Colorado Springs. He attacked us and blah, blah, blah. And we chased him and he flagged down a car and he jumped in the car and they took off. So they gave him, the 3 local gang guys gave the police the description of the car and the license plate. Gang people are very, very, observant. So the police then went to the nearby neighborhood, drove around, they found the car and went to the house, and that's how they arrested him.
So our job was basically to establish the fact that this was self-defense. 3-on-1, they're rough guys. They probably had weapons, although we don't know. And our job was to find eyewitnesses who would be independent people, not Crips, not Bloods, not Sureños, not Vaqueros, but actual kind of like neighbors, people that own snowblowers. And so we're kind of baffled because we just weren't finding anybody.
Well, may I again?
Please.
He's so kind. What was our option? It was to do, to canvass the neighborhood, and canvass the neighborhood means to go door to door, knock and talk. But what we learned was going door to door, it was an elderly gentleman who said, you can't be coming to our doors and asking about a gang member. We're all afraid of gang retaliation. So what happened was, then we realized we were in a position, how do you get a witness in that situation? So the flyers, yeah.
So Colleen got one of these electronic numbers that is only good for that case kind of thing. And so there's the technology. Legal investigators will use technology and resources on computers and stuff that stem from the particular case. And she's the techo person, okay? Anyway, we get the phone number. I print up these, like silly ass flyers, and I start going door to door, house to house.
No, we were told not to. I started hanging them.
Yeah.
And we put on there, if you saw an incident on this date at this time, location, please call this number. And we hung them on lamp posts and fences and,
I think I hit a couple of houses too, but I didn't tell you that part because she didn't probably want me going door to door in a gangbanger neighborhood.
Right, yeah.
But I fit right in.
Yes.
So ultimately.
Well, we were down to the wire.
Yeah, because trial's approaching. And by the way, here's something else for your legal investigator in your fictional story. Lawyers don't do squat ahead of time. We have one law firm, it's just like we know it's, we charge them rush rates for everything we get from them because everything we get from them is a rush job.
They wait till the last moment.
And so, but this case, the clock was ticking because trial was coming. And
the only offer was 5 to 12 in the state pen. The kid, prison only. That was it. Prison only, 5 to 10.
Yeah,
take it or leave it. Yeah.
State
5
pen.
to 12. Yeah,
I got that in a Roger Corman movie. So we had like a deadline coming up, and I'm out there,
tick tick tick,
and the special phone number rings.
All of a sudden,
I got a Tuesday night before the next Monday's trial. Yeah. And this woman the woman calling was a brave woman. She was a paralegal at a big downtown Denver law firm, single mom, supporting her family.
Well, she did call from a public number. She did not want to be traced.
Right.
Very smart.
But she said she was calling, oh, you're an investigator. Well, so on and so forth. And we knew, I knew kind of which law firm it was. And she said, look, my daughter saw some things, but I want her protected.
Yeah.
She said, you have to, if we're going to come forward, we're going to talk to you, my daughter will tell you the following, A, B, C, D. It fit everything. Because when we write up that flyer, we're not saying, we're just saying somebody was injured, something happened. If you saw something, contact us. We didn't say stabbing, 3 guys, one guy with short hair, no. It's just as base as you can get it. And so she said, well, this is what my daughter saw. She saw this guy get in the car. He was chased. It looked like he was terrified. I couldn't tell,
Yeah.
she couldn't tell, but
Yeah.
she thought they had a weapon, the guys that got stabbed. And so it like fit our case. Ultimately by, assuring her that we would get everything sealed and everything would go to the DA from my report, and her daughter wouldn't have to say
Well, she
anything.
met us. She
And
met,
she
late at
met
night
us late at night.
at the park at that time. It's so brave. It's just like a movie. Walked out of the shadows of the park, and she said, "Okay, here's the deal." But she was like, "Here's what
Yeah.
happened. Here's what they chased him. They cornered that poor boy." She said, "I want to do the right thing. I want to do the right thing for that poor boy." She really felt for him, and it was powerful.
So ultimately the case got dismissed. The kid walked.
Yeah.
And he's never been back. So we think that he probably wasn't like a waste.
Shaun.
So now Colleen's going to talk to you about my favorite character,
Oh,
JJ Swagger.
I made that up. I want to say what we call that last case, and I really like it, is the witness who came in from the cold. So last week, this attorney from back east, who supposedly has a CIA background, I don't know what that's about, but he is close with an attorney we work with all the time here. And so our attorney here connected us. And the attorney back east said, he's the one who said, "I need to find this guy, and I'm just going to call him JJ Swagger." And he said, "He's a client who didn't pay me, and I just want to find him so I can ask for my money." And that's when I said to Shaun, "What kind of lawyer doesn't know his own client's first name,
Especially since he's CIA, retired
Yeah.
CIA.
Anyway, so, that's nothing about PIs. You don't ask about the case. Well, okay, Shaun does, but you don't ask about the case. You're given your task, and it's not your business. You don't offer opinions. Shaun does though. But you work with, you go for facts and you turn them into the lawyer. Often you don't even know how a case ended. So anyway, so JJ Swagger, not his real name. And the lawyer said, all I only know is I have this phone number for him. And here's a link. He's a hairstylist in Aurora, and here's his Facebook page. So this is one where I can't go to public records, right? Although I tried. First thing I did was run a reverse, and reverse is PI lingo it's like reverse engineering. I take something and then I burrow down to see what information is behind it. I'm just getting over a little cold buggy thing, so I sound raspy, and I hope it sounds kind of sexy, but anyway. So
It does.
so I ran a reverse on JJ Swagger, and actually the last name not being Swagger, of course, it was a very unique name. So I thought, well, this is good. Just run this in like IRB, billions of public records. Oh, this is easy. I'm going to find it. And I found only one family with that last name in Colorado. And they're like three hours from Aurora. And only one member of the family, the first two initials are JJ, this guy. Only one person had the first name that started with J. But he's way too old, because the lawyer said, my guy, JJ Swagger, is about 30 years old. This guy was 49, so that didn't work. So then Shaun was helping me with Colorado licensing. I said, let's look up JJ Swagger in the Colorado licensing and see if there's a hairstylist, barber.
Public records database. You can look up what kind of license people have. Real estate, vets,
PI.
and people who fight in the UFC arena.
Well, then that's a little foreshadowing. So there's no JJ Swagger with a license in Colorado for anything. But we were looking for a barber cosmetologist. So then that's when I knew I was in a funky place where I started going down rabbit holes. So then the next thing was, so I went to the Facebook salon page, and he's the only guy who works at this salon, interestingly enough, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night. Oh, okay. So I start reading through all the comments on Facebook, because I thought, surely JJ is going to comment as his first name, whatever it might be, Jacob, Joe, Jimmy, whatever, or somebody might call him by his first name. Then I have a first name. No, he never refers to his first name. No one ever calls him by his first name. So I ran through several years of comments and pictures just to try and find something. So next, when I couldn't find anything there, I thought, well, what about that phone number? Now, this is not public records again. what can I find if I go down a rabbit hole with that phone number of the salon? So I started checking that out and I found it was registered to, and that's using different databases, but really this is, there's no cell phone repository. So you're really doing real hit and miss when you start trying to dig into a cell phone number. So what I found was, interestingly enough, it said, oh, this cell phone is registered to, I'll just call it Bobby Myers. I thought, who's Bobby Myers? Well, that's not our guy. And then I thought, well, let's look up Bobby Myers in the Colorado licensing, see if that's a hairstylist. Maybe that's his real name. Nope, no license at all for Bobby Myers. Except when I pulled up Bobby Myers' photo on the internet and our JJ Swagger, they look alike. And I said to Shaun, look at this. They have the same beard. They have the same hairstyle. I said, this is weird. So then I said, I'm going to investigate this phone number a little bit more. I'm going to dig more. So I started digging more and I found the phone number had recently been registered to, and this was I'll just make up the name, Jacob Billy Smith, just Jacob Billy Smith. But I went, wait a minute, there's a first name that starts with J. So I said, this might be interesting to keep following this rabbit hole. So, okay, this is a lot of digging and monotony, but I finally found a little email address attached to this Jacob, whatever that last name was. And the email address was JJ_Bobby Smith, whatever, at. I went, there's the JJ. So I said, okay, there's the JJ. Now I have to follow this email address and see what happens. So I managed to extract enough information that we ran the name JJ something, right, in Colorado licensing, looking for a hair salon license. No hair salon license, but we did find the JJ, what's his name? It was actually something like Jacob, Jimmy, and then the last name, totally different last name. Had a license as a participant in combative sports. And
That means UFC, MMA.
And what did I see on the Facebook page? In the 2
Octagon,
years I had gone through, our JJ Swagger was in a cage fighting someone. So there's the connection. So that's where you dig, and man, it's like a lot of work. And here's the clincher of the story. I turned in my report at the end of January 6th. That's what I did all January 6th with that horrible news going on too. The next day, Shaun came to me and he said, you know what this case is about with JJ Swagger? He had just learned. He said, he broke into a house, kidnapped a child, stole $30,000 worth of jewelry, and now he's in jail. He's also on parole in prison. He violated parole. He's going back to prison. So that was one of those crazy cases where it ends up having a good ending.
Well,
so fairly.
For most of the participants, it has a good ending. You know, I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the intangibles in being an investigator of any kind, legal investigator especially, is you have to be able to see between the lines, like in the last case, to understand what people's motives, enjoyments, habits, things they really enjoy.
Hobbies.
No one would know that I am trying to become a professional sports gambler $5 at a time. I'm a couple times never mind, but I almost like won some money once. But you would know that about me. But JJ, finding out the link to from the one thing, the combative sports website, and then matching that to the pictures that he puts on his Facebook page.
That was the hobby.
We were able to leverage his hobby, or in this case, what he perceives to be his future career.
Yeah.
Well, it was. Now he's going to be fighting in another arena entirely. Is really key. So I'm going to tell you about a case that.
So a hobby that's just interesting with a PI. All the work you can do, it's the hobby that's the downfall of the person. They can't stop flashing their hobby. And you're going to tell another hobby story. This one's really big.
Years ago, we worked on a case actually out of Fort Collins where the accused was a very, very famous chess teacher. A world famous chess teacher. When we during the case, went to his house a number of times, and these signed pictures, hey, bud, thank you, Will Smith. And then, somebody else, he was used as a consultant in movies in LA. He was the chess teacher to the Children of the Stars. And he lived in Fort Collins, and he had a school for students of a young age. And I think he can kind of figure out where I'm not going to go any further with that, but that was his proclivity. We got the case disposed of. He got on probation. He said, I'm not going to do anything about probation. I'm going to leave the country, which is what he did.
He did. He
And
slipped the country.
the next thing we know, we're watching him on America's Most Wanted with
Yes.
John Walsh, who is
Yes.
a man who is way too serious. And everybody just kind of took bets. Well, when are we going to see Robert?
Yeah.
When is he coming back? When are they going to find him? Where are they going to find him?
Yeah.
Well, he moved to a South American country.
He was fluent. in
He
that
was
language.
fluent in Spanish, so he could do that. He married a woman from the region who, strangely enough, or not so strangely enough, had young children. He changed his looks. He lost weight. So should probably call him on that one. But the one thing he did was he was giving chess lessons to children again.
He was hanging signs
So
advertising
he went all
chess,
around his, I don't remember, I can't remember,
village or whatever.
Caracas or
Yeah.
whatever place it was. And,
So his hobby, that thing, that was his downfall.
because somebody who had seen the TV show
Yeah.
and seen his poster was vacationing in that country, saw the signs and called, and they picked him up, and he's now, as they say, in Fremont County, Colorado, which is where your state prison is.
For
So,
life. Well, here's my throat's starting to kind of go, but we're going to have giveaway number 2. Take it away, Shaun.
yeah, take it away. Giveaway calendars. Questions. Are we unmuted? Can we unmute
you
Lori
go.
for
Here
questions?
you go. Here's our calendar. Who's
Mm,
Everyone can unmute.
I have a question.
Okay,
Yes.
DJ.
So when you're looking for someone and you find out they have a whole series of aliases, how do you sort through that to find the real name?
May I? Yeah, that's kind of my thing. And I call it rabbit holes. I think every PI, I'm going to guess, does it differently. I just start having to play with it and what's attached. And like with JJ Swagger, it was starting to go down the rabbit hole of the one cell phone number that was attached to that bogus name. And then it was deep in that rabbit hole that I found it was just a little email address, and it started with JJ. And then that helped me open up another rabbit hole. So, it's like different every time. What nugget can I find?
We will be in a position frequently where, especially with a common name,
Mhm.
Mike Valdez, just pick that one off the, where there are hyphenated maternal and paternal names that are mixed up
Oh,
together
yeah,
and
yeah.
that kind of thing. So what you start doing is basically you take the date of birth for the person that you're looking for. You take a known, for instance, we have a lot of criminal cases with a lot of people who have a lot of criminal convictions. So we will take a known conviction. So we're basically going to be using a standard comparison to pull information and compare it to the person we found. I found a guy and with his name was used, he used his father's name. His father was 20 years old when he was born. The person who was concealing himself simply moved that date up 10 years so he could use it for himself and his dad.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
but he never changed the date of birth. It was always October
Oh,
30th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, when you're manipulating things, you're going to manipulate known things. And so you'll
And also look for those little things where there's a similarity, like JJ or
Mhm.
the month and day were similar if the year was off.
The other thing is locations. You have to correlate name, location, criminal history,
Mhm.
and other factors, criminal convictions, property ownerships, vehicle ownerships.
Well, may I?
Yeah.
This just really, I once had to find a gentleman who went by the name Silver Hawk. Remember that? Was it Golden Eagle?
It was Golden Eagle.
That's all I had. And the mother was devastated. She's out in California, and she said my son has disappeared with this person called Golden Eagle. And now that took, and I'm just going to call it rabbit holes again. That was like going down. Where do you find somebody called Golden Eagle? And and then you find a little teensy. This is not even public record. You find a little teensy nugget of information. We ended up at a bar out in Longmont, right? Or
It was Oscar Blues.
And I for some reason, I'd found that Golden Eagle had gone there, and it was a bartender. Bartenders are the best for information, by the way. It was a bartender who said, oh yeah, that guy, that's where I got a first name. And then this was good. He said, oh yeah, he used to deliver water. That opened up a huge door. So.
Because then we went to the water company.
And then it got better and better. It ended up that Golden Eagle ran a cult. This got even better, because he would do P.O. boxes. If you ever want a bad guy who can hide his address from the US government, you start seeing someone with a string of P.O. boxes and they have different addresses behind them. He was doing that. And then he ended up moving to a reservation in New Mexico. And that, our US database is proprietary. It doesn't matter if they go through billion of records. They don't have information from that reservation. So he went with his cult, and he'd moved there, and it was only, God, that was hard, wasn't it? Through the mother provided some credit card statements because she was actually very wealthy, and her son was kind of funding the cult for a while. We were able to track it that far, and we went and did surveillance. We had to make sure we were okay. We checked it with the lawyer here. We don't have licenses in New Mexico, but being on a reservation, we didn't need it. And that was pretty eye-opening. And we took, I kind of almost want to cry thinking of it, photos and videos, actually from outside the reservation. We were doing that because we saw the son and other young people. And
ultimately, I went to the door of the house they were in.
Oh my God.
And I was wearing a body camera.
In the reservation, he went to the house.
Yeah, I went to the house, and
so we could try and get closer.
and I told them a lie to get them to talk to me. Can you imagine that? All those years as being a lawyer, and I told someone a lie to get the information from them. I mean, my God. But the kids talked to me, but the whole.
But what he did, a kid came out of a side door. He was drenched with water, and he was carrying a bat. And I was in the car going, excuse me, this is where cuss words, it's a string of cuss words. And I went, oh my God, I'm gonna see Shaun being battered here. I took photos. Oh.
I thought I was either at a heavy metal concert, or it was I interrupted the filming of like a snuff movie, but he smelled really good. So I felt okay with it. He had this lovely northern New Mexico kind of cedar-ish shampoo. It was lovely.
Well, anyway, through a long story, and a PI that we connected with in New Mexico to continue helping the family, the son was able to get out of the cult and back to California. And it was about a year later, the mother called me, and she said, turn on Dr. Phil. Some of the parents whose children are still there are talking and asking for information about them. And she said, the FBI just discovered this place they lived at on a reservation. I was like, excuse me, but this part kind of broke my heart. This one mother turned to the camera and she showed the picture of her son. It was the kid with all the wet in the bat. She said, this is my son, Eric, if anybody knows anything about him. And that cult is still going on, So anyway, God, we really, that was.
I don't know if we've used up our time or not.
How about something light to end this with, like wild and wacky process services? Would you like that?
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
That's good. Then we're going with it because nobody said no.
Okay.
By the way,
Yeah.
The thing about, getting with these people and getting information from them was you kind of have to, sometimes you can't look like you really know what you were doing. My ruse at that doorway,
Columbo.
my ruse at the doorway was And I had a big picture of our dog.
Oh, yeah.
I had a picture of our first Rottweiler.
Yes.
Now we're on our third. But, you know, I said, this is our dog and we lost our dog. And I thought about the karma of, you know, doing that. But at the moment, you know.
No, that was good. The
and-
kid was, I think, whacked out on drugs, but he didn't want to hit you because of the picture. So, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I'm sorry, but the whole dog thing really works. So when we get sued by somebody, when we are, let's all say a prayer for the moment that this doesn't happen, but when one person wants another person to come to court, that's when a process server gets involved.
Yes.
Process service is involved when we let the other side know that we are suing you, other side. And so I get to be the messenger of due process. I get to actually serve papers on people so that they aren't blindsided by judgments later on, by the
If
way.
only they would appreciate this more.
You know, so I call it, you know, I'm kind of like, I'm a happy little angel of information. I'm like the US Postal Service, only I'm more popular than.
So
than
yes,
them.
he has had people try to run over him in their truck.
Yeah, I bet, you know, so.
Yeah, they-
What we do when we do this is we're providing this information to people. A lot of times I have taken to now more recently calling people to tell them I'm coming.
Mm.
In the pandemic, by the way, people don't open their doors. You know,
which we like.
you know, there's
Talk to them.
a
through.
guy in a Broncos sweatshirt outside and a Broncos mask, and I ain't opening my door, you know, and honestly, we don't open our door for just anybody. I try not to open the door for the children often. What we find is that people react very violently to being surprised by this stuff.
Well, some do.
And yeah, some are really nice. You know, some people, you sue them and they say thank you, and then you feel guilty. And so, you know, what we do is
Well, how
we've had
about this crazy guy who stood in? Yeah. this was good.
recently I was hired. I don't know how many of you know Idaho Springs. It's a little mountain town. It's not particularly wealthy. It's not like Summit County. And so a father was trying to get his own daughter out of his apartment because the daughter and the boyfriend were beating the father up.
Okay, too much information, but okay.
Well, you know, and
Yeah.
so what I'm trying to tell you is the daughter's an asshole, okay? So long and short of it, I get hired. I go up there in the snow. I bring our current
It was
Rottweiler
15
Traveler.
degrees.
It was 15 degrees, and I go to the door. I knock on the door, and this is what I get. I know you're out there. I know you've got papers. You're going to try and get me out of my dad's house, and I'm not going to let you in, bitch.
Okay, Sean. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. You know, I'm kind of,
Sean's hair was a little longer than she wasn't seeing him often.
and so I knock again 3-4 minutes later. Long and the short of it is that finally I walk around the back of the building. I can look in their window and
There they are.
I can see the
they are
daughter
looking at
and the
him.
boyfriend there. And the boyfriend, by the way, is wearing like some kind of really short shorts
And no
and nothing
shirt.
else.
And
It's
no shirt
15 degrees.
with the window open.
So I walk around the apartment building and there's the girl, and she says to me, you know what? I'm inside and you're outside. And if you can't actually touch me with these papers, then this service isn't any good. It's 15 degrees. I got a dog in a running car. I just want to go home and watch basketball.
You just walked right up to the window. You said you're served. Put it there. And
I
left.
slid it in the window.
Yeah.
You know, here, great myths of American process service. You don't have to be touched with the papers. You just have to know they're there. I think that there's probably some great character out there for one of you to write, other than Pineapple Express, who probably sees this kind of stuff.
It
all
might
the
be
time.
about time. It's been about an hour. Do you want us to stop and just have open questions or wrap it up or what?
Yeah, I think there's just a few questions, if you don't mind staying for a few
No,
minutes.
in fact, once
No.
again, we do the, where's the calendar?
We don't even have to drive home, so we're good with this.
So once again, first question. Sean, can you do?
Yeah, first question, calendar.
Okay.
Well, Bruce had a question earlier about using social media for investigations.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's Colleen's big deal.
So, I mean, what can you access? I mean, do they have to post it publicly? Can you get things that aren't posted publicly? Like, how do you go about using that?
Well, often I use social media. I find it very interesting how much people just say. You know? And I'll read through this. It's tedious, but I'll read through several years, 3-4 years of comments on Facebook, and I'll find that nugget. So that's one way where it's just there and they drop it. Or,
Generally, you can see that.
I mean, if it's not locked, yes, I can see it.
So do
Otherwise,
they- So if people don't post it publicly, can you
Well,
see it?
so what I'm going to say is, if it's posted public and I can read through stuff and see pictures, whatever, I can find a nugget. But then to follow up, sometimes we might know. I take screenshots of everything. Sometimes we know someone had something or I do on a social media site, and if suddenly the site is deleted, well, sorry. Then the lawyer just issues a subpoena, and that's how the information is pulled. Plus,
Oh, okay. You know, all that matters is whether I put my trash down or not.
put your what?
And he's a very easy,
I'm sorry, what?
you know, we have,
Well,
he's just as mellow as he can be. So
Oh, yeah.
anyway, yeah, that's great.
Okay, so a lawyer can subpoena.
And then you guys won't have Monday either, right?
Have what?
Money?
All right.
Well, we like money. Is that what we're going to talk about? So,
No, no.
No, I
Okay.
think somebody was
I
talking.
unmuted Jadid. She was unmuted. You were hearing her.
oh,
Oh,
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
okay, because it was getting really interesting there.
When I find someone has locked Facebook and Twitter, immediately I go, "Oh, this is interesting." You know, I can't find anything, but I can still see a profile photo. Anybody can, and sometimes that has helped me. Or I just add it to the data for my report, going, "Well, this person has locked this account and this account and this account." So I don't know what that represents, but here's their photo, and here's another photo. And this looks like the woman they talked about up there. And remember that woman who was under a false name, renting places.
Oh, yeah.
Really nice places up in Evergreen. Yeah, she had no money. She had no money. She was homeless, and she was doing a good job renting, leasing these big, beautiful places. I guess she was quite good looking. So, that's just another piece to put in that the lawyer would find of interest.
I could also briefly say that we had a case this last year where a gentleman had been previously charged and convicted of harassing the mother of his child. He came to the lawyer. He said, "Listen, I've done a lot of things in my life. I am not newly harassing her." So what the wife was doing is she was creating accounts,
Yes.
creating Gmail
Yes.
accounts,
Yes.
and then writing these harassing things to herself and then sending them to the DA's office. And the way you can get at that is you can do a subpoena
To Google.
to Google
one.
and to produce the source of who
Yeah.
created that account. And this guy was a hard gang banging, drug dealing SOB.
That he had not written those.
But he hadn't written them, and he maintained that. And so he walked out of jail a couple of months ago. So anyway, there's ways that lawyers have developed to develop information through social media and related sites as well that are newly
Or
found.
sometimes I will find, if there's just a little clue or a little nugget of someone that looks like a relative, I'll go to their social media and see what I can find out.
so you talked earlier about some websites where you had to have like a PI license to get into, and then some that are public. So what are the ones that are just anybody can? You don't have to have a PI license.
Well, Spokio, I'll tell you one I think is really good. And it's a Spy Dialer.
Spy
And-
dialer?
Yeah, and Spy Dialer, I know just by accident, the PI behind Spy Dialer, and you don't see his name there, is the same PI who runs Skip Smasher, and he specializes in telecommunications. And so Spy Dialer, I love it because it's free, and I will check for cell phone registrations there. And I'll say 8 times out of 10, it's right on. And that's just free information. And Spy Dialer has opened up to other information. You can plug in their names and emails and addresses. I love it for phone numbers. You can also listen to a voice message bypassing ringing the phone.
Wow.
Little warning, but they will know if they want to check that you were the one who checked. But look, if they don't know and the phone didn't ring, it's a good way to hear a voice message.
A good PI will never do anything where they leave a footprint with their own phone number. Because generally your home address is behind stuff like that.
So I'll use phone.com, which anybody can use. And I use that to set up masking phone numbers, so I can call from a phone number, or that phone number I will give to someone, like when you set up a sting for a guy to, well, that's a whole long story, but he called that number. So phone.com, I can also record the calls coming in and record my conversation. Phone.com gets really fancy. You can also do background noises like you're in a bar.
Really?
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, who's that? Oh,
Yeah,
hi.
Chris, I have a question. What about using stuff like VPNs to scramble your history on the when you're searching for things?
Yeah, I like VPNs, and we use Express VPN personally at home. And the only problem I have found was that VPNs, there's so many people using them. Express VPN has been so good to us that I had problems getting into my own proprietary database because it said, this is a suspicious IP. It's thousands of people use it. And I had to call and say, hi guys, PIs use VPNs. How do we get past this? Finally I got past it. But I think everybody, no matter what you do, should use a VPN because you're tracked. If you go to Facebook, you're still tracked after even you log out. I'm getting a little raspy, but then they just track you. And it's like, who wants that? Let them track, a VPN IP,
Okay.
Congratulations, by the way, on your shout out, Colorado.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you very
very
much.
nice.
Thank you.
So, Shaun, when you were talking about going to address, showing up on someone's door
Mhm.
just to talk to someone, so as opposed to police or anything, you don't need search warrants, you don't need anything. You can just, because you're just talking to people, right?
Right.
What
Right.
rules don't apply to you that might apply to the police?
Well,
The Constitution.
yeah. There's this thing called the Constitution.
Do we still have that? Is that
Well,
still?
Colleen told me not to make, pointed political commentary, so I'll just put it this way. I can't look in somebody's house
Yeah.
without their permission. I can't go in and walk around because I don't have a warrant and I can't get a warrant. It's interesting legally. The idea is if a policeman does something like search your house without a warrant, it's called a trespass. Technically. And the trespass comes about from entering your home without your permission. It's the same thing that applies to me. But it's for different reasons.
But a police officer could also lie, and a PI can't. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, Shaun lied.
I have
Only once.
Only once.
Only
He's
one
never
time.
lied.
there are times that I don't tell the truth, but it will most often be with a case involving, a non-lawyer, or I'm doing process service where I'm completely independent.
Mhm.
What I can't do is get information that's going to be used
I guess.
in a trial or in a case
Mhm.
by false pretense.
But a cop can.
But a cop can kind of do that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So because I'm working for a lawyer in that case, the downside of being legal investigator is you can't misrepresent yourself.
Mm.
You can't just pull that curtain aside and look in somebody's window. So that's the downside, because my conduct reflects on the lawyer. But if I'm working without a lawyer, and we do rarely, but
Mhm.
every once in a while, then, you know, it's a little different. But honestly, you know, I had a seminar once with a guy who was one of the defense lawyers in the Chicago 7 trial. And he said to the seminar, he said, don't do or say anything in a case that you don't want to hear coming right back at you in 6 months in a courtroom because somebody had a tape recorder on. And, you know, I'll leave the rest to, you know, he was the real lawyer. He wasn't the guy in the miniseries. Anyway. So.
And do you have to often then actually testify at trial, or do you just get what you find out, the evidence, and hand that off to the attorneys?
For the most part, it's I find out the evidence, and then I subpoena the witness, and I may or may not be involved in the trial. The gun trial that she was talking about, I was involved in that trial.
And sometimes lawyers call you, one of our lawyer clients, and just say, Shaun, can you be at a trial tomorrow to testify about X in the case? Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it just kind of depends on what the request is. Like today, I served an eviction notice on a home. Later on next week, I'll serve the papers, and I may have to testify because their dog, when last summer when I served another eviction notice, their pit bull charged me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I can then testify after I give the subpoena to people. I can testify about the fact that they had a dangerous dog on the premises in violation of their lease term.
So, hi, is that it?
Anybody else? Questions? I feel like I could just hog the floor, so I don't want to do that.
Well, before we leave, dear calendar winners, drop us an email again at North Denver Investigations, that's plural, North Denver Investigations @gmail.com with your mailing address. And we will keep it confidential. We won't share that with anyone. And you'll get calendar mail.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Thank you, Lori.
Lori, thank you. Everybody, it's good to meet you.